I thought I wanted to write picture books because I thought they would be easy to write, starting my new writing career. Well, I was very wrong. Picture books are not easy to write because you have to get a story in 500 words or less. My first picture books, I wrote some manuscripts and I submitted them, and they were like 1,000 words.
Welcome to Write About Everything. I'm author Karolyn Kearney, and I write stories for early readers through adults. I started this podcast because I really love the conversations that take place before and after the final draft. This is where we explore the courage to begin, the creativity to continue, and the reinvention that often surprises us along the way. Hi, I'm author Karolyn Kearney, and I am here today with fellow author Barbara Renner.
Hi, Karolyn.
Hey, Barbara, it's so great to see you again. I ran into you first a couple years ago. I remember thinking back, it was at the Tucson Book Festival at the University of Arizona, right? Yeah, you were doing a book fair there.
I was. Maybe that was the first place we met.
I think it was. You actually were at a booth with Karen Cantrell, and Rita, somebody?
Rita Goldner.
Perfect, yes. I remember running into you a couple years ago, and throughout the last few years, I've seen you at multiple events, and really am happy that you're here. But let me give you, let me share with our listeners a little bio about you, okay? So, as a native of the Southwest, Barbara Renner loves everything about the dry heat. She and her husband have lived in Phoenix, Arizona for over 50 years, where they raised 2 wonderful children. After retiring from teaching, Barbara and her husband traveled to Minnesota to fish and enjoy the cooler weather. I'd like to do that right now.
Right.
That's when Barbara discovered the common loon and began the next chapter of her life, writing picture books, because everyone needs to know about loons. Not wanting to leave the desert birds out, Barbara wrote 4 picture books about a Gambel's quail named Quincy. When not walking her dog Larry, she gardens, reads, swims, travels, and ponders what to write in her next newsletter. Oh, great intro, Barbara. So that leads me to my first question, because I spent some time wandering through your website, and I have to tell you, I love your website.
Really?
It is. I'm always working on mine, and yours is just stellar. I love the fact that it's so engaging and that you have free resources for people, for parents and educators. But in any case, so what I wanted to ask you about specifically are your wildlife books.
Okay.
So I did see you have, correct me if I'm wrong, you have Lonnie the Loon, Quincy the Quail, and Trumpeter Swan. So can you tell me a little bit about why you decided to write about wildlife and why these particular birds?
Oh, okay, great. I have a little frog in my throat. Well, like I said, or in my bio, my husband and I went to Minnesota during the summer after I retired from teaching. And I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And being a Southwestern girl, I didn't know anything about loons. I heard them in movies and stuff, but I didn't know about them exactly. Well, they are the most fascinating waterfowl on this earth. They have 4 distinct loon calls. They're called diving birds in Great Britain because they dive under the water for fish. They have red eyes in order to reflect the light so they can see underwater. They have hollow bones so that they can, not hollow. They have solid bones so that they can dive underwater. And the more I researched them, the more folklore I learned about them. And I thought that would be a good topic or a good character for my beginning picture books that I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to write picture books because I thought they would be easy to write, starting my new writing career. Well, I was very wrong. Picture books are not easy to write because you have to get a story in 500 words or less. My first picture books, I wrote some manuscripts and I submitted them, and they were like 1,000 words. The critiquers said, "Oh, no, too many words, too many words." So anyway, I researched the loon, and being an English major, I do like alliteration, so his name had to be Lonnie the Loon. And so Lonnie the Loon was created, and I wrote 4 pictures books, like I said, of him growing up. And I included sounds in the books, which was an aha moment actually for me because I wanted the readers to hear the loon calls. And so I did that, and that was fun. So that's how the wildlife got started. I can talk more about the loons if you want, but after we went back to Arizona, I didn't want to leave the Arizona birds out. And there was a covey of quail running around in our yard. And I thought, oh, quail, aren't they wonderful little creatures? And I enjoyed watching them scurry around the yard. So that's when Quincy the Quail was created. And I wrote about his family. And then back in Minnesota, they have trumpeter swans, which are the largest waterfowl in North America. And I was pretty close with the Tamarack Wildlife Refuge near Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. And I asked them if I wrote a book about trumpeter swans, if they would carry it in their gift shop. They already carried my loon books. So they said yes. So I ran the stories by them and wrote 2 books about trumpeter swans. And so
Wow.
that's my wildlife.
So, what is next as far as wildlife? Are you planning on a new book on specific wildlife?
Well, I since I grew up in New Mexico state bird is the roadrunner, and I'm fascinated about the roadrunner also. And I started a book or a manuscript about Ricky the roadrunner, and I just I just haven't finished it. I'm kind of stuck, so he is on the shelf right now, waiting to be revived, and maybe I'll continue with them someday. And what other wild animals? I don't know. Those are really, I do like, oh, a raven. I started researching ravens too. And I have a book about ravens. I wanted to write a story about a raven also. Well, I could go into more length if you want. Ravens are very intelligent. And they've been known to bring gifts to people. And my story was about a little girl who was sad and was outside, and a raven brought her a sparkly little gift.
Oh,
And so maybe someday I'll continue with that. I don't know.
I love it. So, is your heart mostly in birds or other
I
animals?
never thought they were. I have a friend who's deathly afraid of birds and she doesn't want to be around them. Uh, but that doesn't mean that they're not unusual and wonderful creatures. I do like to hear their songs in the morning. And I have an app on my phone that tells me what bird is singing. And so
Oh.
I guess I do like birds.
Isn't that funny how we discover these things about ourselves and you start to see a pattern? Isn't
Right?
that
I
cool?
know. I had no idea.
So you brought up something that really interests me, which is getting stuck. You mentioned
Oh,
that I think it was Ricky the Roadrunner. You
Ricky the
started
Roadrunner.
And I love the alliteration as well. I've always loved
Always.
alliteration.
Yeah.
Um, but Ricky the Roadrunner, you started and you got so far and you kind of got, it sounds like stuck. You put Ricky the Roadrunner aside for now, correct?
Yes.
So that leads me to my question. Because I deal with not knowing how to finish a book, or I get halfway through and I get like stuck, or I write myself into a wall. Do you have any techniques or anything in your so-called toolbox that helps you kind of deal with that or to get through that?
Boy, I got stuck on a couple of the Quail books with an ending. They just seemed to end so abruptly. And I know when I was teaching writing, I did like a method where you mm, tie up your package by referring back to the beginning. And so I try to do that in my writing with as far as the ending, tie it into the beginning. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
But as far as a toolbox, I have wonderful critique partners, and they help me. They read the manuscript and then give suggestions on uh, how to get unstuck or how to end a story or a book. So that helps quite a bit too. I'm mostly a very individual person, um, but I have discovered that I need to rely on other people
Yeah.
for advice and knowledge. And so I'm branching out and doing that more. So that's my
That's
toolbox, I guess.
well, I like how you mentioned you do need other people. Writing is a solo activity, but along the way, we definitely need other people to step in and kind of help us smooth out the edges, whether it's a critique group, like you mentioned, working
Hmm.
with editors, beta readers, illustrators,
Right.
publishers. I agree. It ends up being more of a group effort from start to finish. I'm looking for a critique group. Mine dissolved unexpectedly. So I haven't had anybody to read over my stuff except maybe a small group of beta readers. But in any case,
Now,
that
do
is,
you write middle grade? Is that what you write?
I write middle grade, early reader chapter books and adult fiction short story collections. So
Oh, hmm,
I like being all over the place, which is typical of me because my mind's always like racing.
I hear you.
um, but I know what you mean about the picture books. Now I do the early reader chapter books, which are like one step over or beyond the picture books age wise. And I've really struggled with writing that just because you're so limited with the amount of words that you need to stick by or stick to. So I did a lot of research and a lot of studying to figure out how do I write one of these. And I actually just self-published 3 of them called The Caden Adventures about a little boy. I'm not sure I'm not sure about it, but I'm happy because I had a goal of trying it and I did it. Took a while, but I think you do as a writer, you have to have goals to keep
Good
pushing
for you.
yourself,
Good for
right?
you. Hmm.
So, as far as me, I'm right now working on a new collection of adult short stories for my collection. My stories tend to be either humorous or dark, sometimes in between, but I am on the last story of my collection. I've run into a block. This one's a big block. Usually I can get through it eventually, but I'm not sure exactly how to proceed with the ending. So sometimes what I do is I will just free write just a whole bunch of different endings, just things that are just totally ridiculous to plausible and everywhere in between, just to see if anything sticks. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to do this weekend is to come up with that ending. So
Is this the ending for a story or for a book?
it's for one story in a collection of short stories.
Okay.
So I have 2 short story collections out right now. One is called Ralph the Real Estate Guy, and it's a humorous. least I think it's funny. A short story collection featuring Ralph, the real estate guy, and every story is unique to just him. He's in there somewhere. And then the second is called Good Responsible People, which is about a neighborhood busybody. So every one of the stories is a standalone, but the main character is lurking in it somewhere. And then the last one, I haven't come up with a name for this collection, but it's the last story I'm working on. The final story I need to finish before I have it edited. So, but in any case, don't you just love it? Don't you just love when you get so far in a project and wham, you hit a wall?
Right. Well, I admire you for doing that and going ahead and following through and publishing those. Um, in fact, your journey is a little bit about where I want to go. I'm the reason Ricky the Roadrunner and the Raven are put on hold is because I want to branch out and write chapter books also. And I have an idea, involves a dog. I'm a dog lover also. And I also have blogged through the years, humorous, sarcastic blogs, and they're just sitting on Blogspot, doing nothing. And so I'm researching how to publish those, how to put those together. So it kind of goes along with your short story collection. And
Absolutely.
so I do admire you for following through and thinking of a theme with your short stories and creating a book about it. That would be
Oh, thank
great.
you. Thank you. So let me ask you this. Where do your ideas come from?
Mostly if I'm out and about, like my first blogging episodes were when we were in Minnesota, and I'd be on the boat fishing with my husband, and something would come to me and I would find the humor in it. And so I would, couldn't wait to get home and hammer it out on the computer. Um, if I'm walking, I walk Larry every day. Larry's my dog.
Oh.
Um, and I see something, or if I'm just out and about and something that's humorous, I will write about that in a blog. We recently moved from the west side to central Phoenix, and oh my gosh, I could write chapters about that. And so I try to find the humor in not catastrophes, but challenging situations, or whatever's going around me, or something that's new to me that I haven't experienced. So I try to find the humor in those things in everyday living.
I love that. I am exactly the same way. I a matter of fact, one of the I love short stories. And I think it's because I want to get the idea out quickly, and I'm not very patient. I could probably never write a full-fledged novel. I think the most words I've ever written was 55,000. That seems to me be the sweet spot for me, but I'm a big coffee drinker. And this one is really cool because it has this, I don't know what is that a puma? I think it's a puma, the cat.
Okay.
But in
Yeah.
any case, one thing I love to do is go to thrift stores and I will hunt for coffee mugs from Starbucks. That's the thing I
Oh,
love to do. And I was at a thrift store the other day, right? And I went through all their coffee mugs and oh my, I found a super cool Starbucks mug. I have like 10 of them. And this one's from 2020. So this is an older one. Most of the ones I find are old, which I love. But in any case, so a story came to me as I was in there. And that's the best thing to happen is when you're living your life, something happens and you think, wow, this would make a good story. So I picked up this mug and I'm walking around with it. And I didn't know it at the time, but somebody was kind of following me. Okay. Um, my husband mentioned, this guy always seems to be like behind you wherever you're going, right? And I'm thinking, yeah, well, you know, but in any case, what happened was I decided I don't think I want this mug. I changed my mind. So I went over to the houseware section and I set it down. And then, like, he swooped in and grabbed it. He was
Oh,
hoping I would set it down. And so he set it down. And just for the fun, I said, "What are you doing? That's mine." To see what he would say. And he says, "Well, you set it down. You don't want it." I said, "No, no, it's mine. I just set it down to scratch my nose." So it was so funny. And he just like ran off with it, like clutching it, like he was afraid I was going to take it from him to buy it. And
oh
I
my.
thought, what a great story. Really.
Yeah,
Can you
right.
imagine walking through a thrift store or like a garage sale and you set something down, but then as soon as somebody reaches for it, you change your mind and this
Hmm.
big thing happens. So I thought this would be a great story to write about, but um
Yeah, that's good. That's a good one. I find I've written 2 blogs about grocery stores 'cause I'm not really fond of going to the grocery store. And
uh,
so, yeah, so I know what you mean when you're someplace and something happens and then you feel, um, empowered to write about it, write something about it. Yeah, absolutely.
no, for sure.
Love it.
Let's see. I had a couple questions I wanted to ask you. Now, you mentioned you were an English teacher. Was this like high school, middle school
Oh,
or
it was middle school. Yeah,
oh,
I my degree was in, secondary education, and I have a really stupid reason for choosing secondary education. I know it's ironic I write picture books, but I, didn't think I had the artistic ability to create bulletin boards all the time. So I chose secondary education, and I was pretty good at grammar and English, and so that's where I thought I needed to go. If I were to do it again, like now, I would, choose elementary because bulletin boards are all made for you. You know, you just go to the teacher store or, um, Office Max or whatever, you can pick up bulletin board things, you know, for autumn or spring or whatever the occasion. And so I started out teaching grammar or language arts to middle school, eighth graders.
oh,
That was my first teaching experience, and it was difficult. And I didn't have the discipline skills, so I didn't care for it very much because the students gave me a lot of grief, and nobody wants to learn how to diagram sentences. Uh, and that's what I knew how to do. So anyway, then I moved on to teaching adults a variety of different things. So that's that. That's my story.
oh. I did substitute teaching mostly for English classes for about three
Oh,
years. And I know what you're saying about eighth graders, middle grade. Wow, wow. I have so much respect for those teachers. A lot of times the teachers would leave me things to go over with the students and to do like group activities and things like that. And I think I have a lot of respect for those teachers because it is a challenge for that grade level. Is there
you have to
anything
have a
that's
certain personality, and I
yes,
at the
no,
time in my
definitely.
20s, I did not have that personality. Yeah, I've grown.
Yeah. No, you're right. You have to have a certain personality. But in any case, looking back, do you recall any instance that you really felt like you made a difference to that age?
To the eighth graders?
Yeah, while you were
Um,
teaching?
oh, well, in high school, yes, I moved on from adults to high school, and it was a wonderful experience. My students were wonderful. It was inner city school. I taught business and financial services, and
Oh,
they were so respectful. I still communicate with some of my students,
well, that's
and
really cool.
my former students, they have children now who are going into high school themselves. That's how long it's been. But yeah, they were I enjoyed watching them grow up and become friends with them and watch them as an adult. Yeah.
I think that leads to the next question about being a planner or a pantser. right? So
Oh, yeah.
obviously I
Yep,
am
yep.
a pantser. I write from the seat of my pants. I have no clue, no outline. I just go with it. How about you, Barbara? Planner or pantser?
Well, kind of both. I will plan something out, and because I feel like I'm an organized person, I've got to do planning. But then, like you say, it takes a different direction and something happens. And so then off it goes to a different direction. So then I've got to figure that out and try to plan that. So I guess I'm a little bit of both. Um, I don't know. It's hard to stick to an outline, but I do like to get an outline down as far as the general um, gist of the story and uh, and what's going to happen. But then it can change. So,
I've
like my
tried.
Ricky with the Roadrunner changed a lot. So, and my grandpa books, they changed a lot too. But anyway, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, that reminds me. I wanted to talk to you about that. You've got some books. And by the way, again, I love your website. I know I mentioned that way earlier, I think before we started recording, but your
Oh,
website
thank you.
is
I'll
just,
tell my daughter. She's my webmaster, mistress.
oh,
Web.
hey,
Yeah.
daughter, you've done a great job. My daughter does my website. So isn't
Right,
that a
right.
blessing
Yeah.
to have daughters who will do this for us?
Yeah.
But I was so impressed. I am so impressed with your website. You've got Peppermint Pocket. Tell me about Peppermint Pocket, the book, and then your Grandpa's Game Room and Grandpa's Cigar Box. Tell me about these books. I love the book covers, by the way. They're fabulous.
Oh, thank you. I had excellent illustrators. Yes. Um, well, I'll start with Grandpa's Cigar Box because that was a little controversial. Um, I started that one. Oh, I don't know, maybe right after during my teaching career. Well, maybe 2011 or 2012. I wanted to write about a story about my dad. My dad had a cigar box in the coffee table by the sofa, and he had fun stuff in it for the grandchildren when they'd come over to visit. And so I had to write that story someday. And so I created a manuscript called Grandpa's Cigar Box, and I was part of a critique group and ran it by them. And oh, they said, "Oh, you can't write, you can't have cigar box in the title of your book. It just, you don't want to promote smoking." I said, "I'm not promoting smoking. It's it's a surprise box, a toy box." And they said, "Oh, well, no, it's not marketable. You can't use the word cigar." And so I did a very detailed uh, research, or forget the word. Anyway, I sent it out to my Facebook friends, you know, very official, right? And I said, "Would you buy a book, or would you be offended if the title had cigar box in it?" And I told them what the story was about, Grandpa's cigar box. They said, "Oh no, write it, write it. It's perfect, it's fine." So I did, and I ran it by a few. I went to an SCBWI conference and ran it by an agent. And first of all, she said it was too long, and it was. And she thought it was a good concept, but one thing or another, it wasn't right for her. And so I revised it, revised it, revised it. So it took me a very long time, many years to revise it. And finally, I had the final product, and I think it turned out pretty nicely. So it's one of those things I have to sell it to people. I don't know if it does sell in Barnes and Noble, though. Barnes and Noble carries it.
Yeah.
And so Michael Hale was the illustrator, and he is a author illustrator, part of SCBWI. So he's well known in the community. So I was really thrilled. He was so accommodating. I said, "Well, I want this kind of sofa. I want this grandfather clock in it. I was just being too specific, really." Um, but he did a great job. And he even put a little dog in there, which is a Boston Terrier. And he
Oh.
did that on his own. He had a Boston Terrier. And I said, "Oh, I grew up with Boston Terriers." So it was just perfect. He was a perfect fit. Then I wanted to write one for about my dad teaching us how to play snooker, which is a billiard game. And so I wrote Grandpa's Game Room. It's not it's not too marketable because it has a niche audience being about billiards and stuff. But still,
Yes.
I wanted to write the story because I wanted a legacy for my dad. Then my then came along Peppermint Pocket. My mother told me a story about her Swedish grandmother who wore the long black skirt and the long apron, and she loved star mints. And she always had a supply of mints in her apron pocket. And all the grandchildren called it her Peppermint Pocket. So that story stuck with me. And I had to have that be a title for a book. And so that's what prompted Peppermint Pocket.
Oh, I love
And
it.
yeah, so
I love it. I love the illustrations on the books, and I just love the titles, and the stories sound just fantastic. I
oh,
love
thank
it. I
you.
love it when you can draw upon the past, your experiences and your
Right.
memories, and you can
Yeah.
bring them out and give them life. Isn't that it's a beautiful thing? I mean, I
Yeah.
go through old photos from many years ago, my grandparents and great grandparents, and I look at the scenes and I think, I tried to think what kind of story could I write based on what they're doing and who they were. I find that fascinating. I never got to meet a lot of these people, but
Mhm.
I think it's fascinating I would love to find out more about who they are or were and write something about them. I always believe that every story begins with one scene and then it just grows from there. So
Mm.
the photo provides one scene. So if I can write one scene, then I can expand upon it and then make up things, of course, as we go along. Well,
Yeah,
I tell
those are
you
good
what,
ideas.
yeah, I'm going to ask you one more question before we wrap it up. So let's see here. Okay, here's one. I got my trusty list. So, Barbara, if a new writer were listening right now and feeling unsure about their voice or their place in the writing world, what would you want to share with them?
Well, I guess just to start writing and read. I never was much of a reader as a kid. I wrote silly little stories, silly little mystery stories because I liked Nancy Drew. I did read
Oh,
Nancy Drew. Um, but as far as picking up a book, I was afraid that I wouldn't like it, not realizing that if I didn't like it, I just put it down because I like to follow through. But anyway, honest and truly, you do find a lot of different writing styles just by reading. And a new author or writer, if they just continue to read, then they'll find what they like and then create their own voice or their own style. And just to sit down and start writing. Doesn't have to be good. Um, Keep a journal. Uh, just write, and something will come up for you to expand on and write a story about. And observe. I'm a big fan of observing and watching, and go to the mall or go to the park and watch people and jot some things down about their body language and the way that they hold themselves or what they're doing. Are they having fun? Are they sad? Are they mad? Are they interacting with a dog? Just observe, or observe in the grocery store, or nature. uh, Anywhere you are, just do a lot of observation and uh, put those in your journal or writing toolbox. And then you can draw from those things with your stories or whatever you want to write. So,
That's excellent advice. I do that. I'm a big observer no matter where I'm at. Like, let's say yesterday, I went to the doctor. I'm waiting in the doctor's waiting area with like 8 other people, and there was 8, including me. 7 out of 8 were On their cell phones.
on their phone.
I'm the
Mhm.
one sitting around watching everybody, seeing what's happening. And it's sad that people are just so engrossed in their cell phones and not willing to offer themselves to the world by being observant and being present. But perfectly said. I mean, as far as me, I would advise a new writer. Most new writers eventually start or will attend a critique group, right? A feedback group, critique group, writers group. My advice would be don't listen to anything that's negative, because there's negative advice or suggestion should always be constructive and based on a reason why, versus a comment like, I just don't like your story. And then they close down and you're left wondering, but why? Why don't you? And it can be very damaging. I've started many writer critique groups through the years. I've been a member of many, and I've seen so many other writers just really strike down new writers with really poor feedback that isn't explained. Just telling a new writer, I don't like your character, but I can't tell you why. Or I don't like your story, but I don't know why. I just don't like it. It's terrible. I mean, that's very damaging to a new writer. When you're an older writer, like we are, we've been doing this a while, we just kind of laugh it off. Or we tell them, you have to explain or your feedback is irrelevant to me unless you have a reason, right? We don't take it seriously. And
Right.
we've toughened up over the years. But somebody new, I have had new writers just not come back because they were beaten on so badly by other writers. And we're all here to build one another up. And I'm all like you, probably, I'm all for constructive criticism, but you need to explain why you feel the way because I want to improve things, right? So that would be
Right.
my suggestion is if you get poor feedback from other writers that's not explained, just don't bother listening to them. Keep going.
Right. Yep. Good
Mhm.
advice.
Well, Barbara, thank you so much. Do not hang up yet because I'm going to talk to you after. So just sit tight. But anyway, thank you so much for being here today and
Well, thank
talking
you
with
for
me.
having me.
This has been Right About Everything, where we've had honest conversations about courage, creativity, and the craft behind the pages. Whether you're an aspiring writer or a professional author, it's your time to write. So go ahead, write about everything.